The girl left the house on a bicycle and disappeared. The next day she was found in a field, and the police began searching for the criminal, but they didn't have a single lead, and the case froze for many years. Investigators never stopped searching for the culprit, and only 49 years later they finally named him. Julian Hansen was born in 1957 in Naperville, Illinois. This city was considered calm, a low crime rate, and a measured pace of life. The girl lived with her parents, her older sister, 18-year-old Jill, and her younger brother. Julie loved to sing and was in the school band. Every Sunday she attended circus school, where she sang in the local choir. On July 7, 1972, 15-year-old Julie went to a baseball game to watch her little brother play. The girl took his bike and went to the stadium, which was located a few kilometers from her home. That day she never came to the match, and in the evening she did not return home. The parents were away and were expected to return in a few days. The older sister only noticed Julie's absence the next day. At that time, people were less worried that trouble might happen to their loved ones. Julie could stay overnight with a friend. On July 8, my sister sounded the alarm, finding out that she had not spent the night with any of her friends. Jill contacted the police, and within a few hours they began searching, and they were joined by volunteers. Soon, Julie's abandoned bicycle was found on the side of the road, and a few tens of meters later her body was discovered in a field. The medical examiner determined that the girl was raped and stabbed more than 36 times. Forensic scientists collected the criminal's DNA from the victim's clothing. In the 70s, this evidence was useless, so it was sent for storage. There was no other evidence. The police had to look for the culprit blindly. They did not advertise to the public that the girl had been abused. This technique often worked. The criminal could accidentally let it slip in a personal conversation or during an interrogation, since he knew all the details. Checking suspicious individuals, as well as people with a criminal past, did not bring results. The matter stalled for many years. In 1992, a new lead emerged. Police arrested 42-year-old Major Morris on suspicion of murdering another young girl. In 1973, in a neighboring town, just 17 kilometers from Naperville, the body of 16-year-old Roberta Anderson was found. The crime was exactly the same as Julie's. The man worked as a garbage man and lived near the scene of the incident. When the police began their investigation, he moved in a hurry 2 days later. Despite the suspicion, it was not possible to convict him without a DNA test. Morris soon married and had 2 daughters. In 1992, detectives obtained his DNA, and the material matched the sample on Anderson's body. The family was in shock, because Morris was a kind and loving father. Morris was also accused of killing an 18-year-old girl in 1978. As a result, the man confessed to all the crimes and was sentenced to life imprisonment. All the crimes occurred in the Chicago suburb of Naperville. Investigators were confident that Morris was responsible for Julie's death. A month later, a DNA test came back, but no matches were found. At this point, serial killer Gary Lucas confessed to the murder of Julie Hansen, but the investigators didn't really believe his words. The fact is that after his arrest, Lucas admitted to the murder of more than 100 people, of which 11 were ultimately proven. The men often took responsibility for the crimes of others, but after a short conversation with detectives, it became clear that he had nothing to do with these affairs. Since then, the matter has gone into a backlog again. The police continued to work on him. According to detectives, they had new leads and suspects, but they all led to dead ends. At some point, a man named Bruce Lindell attracted the attention of the police. Serial killer rapist who operated in the 70s and 80s in the Chicago suburbs. He was accused of 12 murders, but only 2 could be proven. His handwriting also matched Julie's murder. The offender inflicted numerous blows with a sharp object, after which he subjected the victims to violence. Lindell himself died in 1981. He attacked an 18-year-old boy, but he resisted. While the criminal was stabbing him with a knife, He accidentally wounded himself and died on the spot. In 2020, his DNA sample was compared with a sample from Julie's case, but they did not match. In June 2021, Naperville police announced at a press conference that after 49 years they had identified Julie Hansen's killer. He turned out to be Barry Lee Whelpley, 76 years old. A quiet retiree was arrested in Mounds View, Minnesota. In 1972, the man was 27 years old and lived 1.5 kilometers from Julie's house. The man worked as a welder all his life, was married 3 times, and had 2 daughters. Whelpley was never a suspect, and the case would probably have remained unsolved if not for modern technology. Detectives sent a DNA sample from Julie's case to a genealogy laboratory. There was incredibly little material, and the evidence had deteriorated over the years. The experts faced an incredibly difficult task. There could be no second chance. One of Whelpley's relatives had previously agreed to a DNA test to find a lost relative, thanks to which the police were able to identify the criminal. Despite the overwhelming evidence, difficulties arose during the hearing. It turned out that during the search of Whelpley's house, the police committed a number of violations. They did not read out the rights and immediately began asking questions. When his wife came home, he began recording their conversation with body cameras. These records had to be excluded from the case, but they did not play a special role. The prosecution was afraid of one thing. Due to his age, the man would not live to see the verdict. All these violations delayed the trial. The Whelpley family could not believe that he was capable of such a thing. The man had always been an exemplary family man and was respected by his colleagues. Investigators believe he may be involved in other crimes. He is currently in custody awaiting trial. Bail is set at $10 million. Considering that his DNA was on the victim's clothing, Barry has virtually no chance of escaping punishment. Unfortunately, Julie's parents never found out who was responsible for her death. The girl's father died in 2009, and her mother in 2019. The brother and sister attended the conference and thanked the investigators for their work. They have long given up hope that the truth will ever come out. As for Barry, he also has a completely clean criminal history, but investigators feared that the man could have killed someone else. Now they are reviewing other crimes committed in that area and trying to find the origin. Thus, modern technologies make it possible to identify the criminal, even in cases where not a single clue has been found in half a century. On the other hand, the killer lived free until he was 76 years old, enjoyed the respect of his friends and the love of his family. Even if he is sentenced to life in prison, he will not spend much time there.